Hey, how's it going, everyone? Mike B back with another video, kind of going to go back to the World War I side of things. I haven't touched it in a couple years. And I'm just going to kind of go over something today that kind of irritates me. It's there's so many misnomers and mislabeling of this particular weapon. I'm just going to kind of set the record straight, give you a brief history on it, and why it's called something that most people don't call it by. So anyway, we've got here is a U.S. Model of 1917 rifle, okay? So this was actually a British design, okay? So we'll start out with that we started manufacturing in 1914 called the Pattern 14. British equipment and stuff is marked with pattern, and US stuff is generally marked with M for model. So the Pattern 14 was chambered in 303 British, and it was essentially the same rifle. Now, we weren't involved in the war until 1917, obviously, and when we got involved, we had two manufacturers making the 1903 rifle. We had Springfield Armory and Rock Island Arsenal. And the 1903 was a little bit more intricate, and it was an older design, so it required more time and more parts, and it was a little bit more expensive to manufacture. So when we got involved, we were grossly under-equipped as far as weaponry went. So the three manufacturers of the Pattern 14 rifle, which were Eddystone, okay, Remington, and Winchester, said, okay, well, we can crank these out. We've been cranking these out for a couple years now. We can crank these out at a rapid pace. They're a little bit cheaper. It's a fine design, and we can just retool our machines to make barrels and chambers that will accept the 30 caliber 1906 or 30-06 cartridge instead of the 303 British. And so then they did that and started making barrels in 30-06. Now, most of this rifle is identical to the Pattern 14 minus the handguard and stuff because the barrel's a little bit different. Other than that, the magazine remained the same, and we actually were able to pick up an extra round in the magazine, so you can hold 6 rounds of 30-06 ammo because they're not tapered like the 303 British is. So that was kind of a perk. I don't even know if they realized that or intended to do that, but that's what happens. So you pick up an extra round in the magazine, so you can have a total of 7 rounds in this thing with 1 in the tube and hang on to it. Now, that was kind of the history about it. It's estimated anywhere between 50 and 70% of the American Expeditionary Force was equipped with this rifle. Good rifle. Most people that were on the front lines, like all the National Army units and stuff that were drafted, were going to be issued these. And the earlier units, like a lot of the National Guard units and active duty, like the 1st Division and the Marines and everything, were going to be issued the 1903. All depending on where you were. A lot of the guys that went over there later on were going to have this rifle. So now we get into kind of like what people call this. They'll call it the 1917 Eddystone, right? And that doesn't make a lot of sense because Eddystone was one of 3 manufacturers. Again, Remington, Eddystone, and Winchester. This happens to be a Winchester. Personal preference, I like Winchester. To me, it's not worth any more than anything else. I just like it better. I want to get a Remington and an Eddystone just to kind of round off the collection. Anyway, you'll notice on the receiver here, it says U.S. Model of 1917. It doesn't say Eddystone, unless it was manufactured by Eddystone. So it's just simply the US M17 or model of 1917. It's not the P17. It's not the 1917 Enfield. That's a pretty interesting one to me because people assume that because it was a British design that it was an Enfield, and there's really nothing Enfield about it except the appearance of the safety selector, which kind of maybe looks like an Enfield selector even though it's different. And the fact that it is a cock on closing, but so are many other rifles, like most Mausers, early Mausers are cock on closing. That's the only 2 things that make it an Enfield, or similar to an Enfield. Totally different, radical design. The bolt is completely different. I think it's actually probably the best design of the First World War as far as a modern bolt-action rifle went at that point. That's my opinion, though. Anyway, so it is called the Model 1917. It's not, I know what you're talking about when you say a 1917 Enfield or an Eddystone, but it makes me think that you don't know anything about these rifles and you just kind of go with the gun show nomenclature. I don't understand why it became the Eddystone. Maybe because it was a weird company that was manufacturing, but that's like calling an M1 rifle like an International Harvester. Oh yeah, I'm gonna grab the M1 International Harvester. It would just sound weird, right? Or an M1 carbine. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get the National Postal Meter. Yeah, people will be like, huh? You're gonna go get a postal meter? What are you talking about? Anyway, so that's just kind of why, it's personal preference, and yes, people know what you're talking about, but when it comes to historical stuff, I try my hardest to portray things accurately and say what they actually were. So this is not the 1917 Enfield or the Eddystone. It's just simply the model 1917. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned a little bit of something. If you got any questions on this rifle, I'm pretty decent at the knowledge on this because it's, again, one of my favorite rifles probably ever made, and I'm really happy to have one, especially made by Winchester. So anyway, let me know if you got any questions on there, and if you consider supporting the channel, there's a bunch of ways to do that in the description. A lot of my gun-related videos are becoming demonetized because they're mean and evil, and people don't like guns and they think they're scary. So if you consider supporting the channel that way, that would really help me out and be able to do some more cool videos and stuff. But I just appreciate you watching. And yeah, if you got any questions, like I said, throw them down in the comments. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next video.